In the last video, as we began to introduce ourselves to Paul's letters, we talked about the fact that they are indeed real letters, not primarily theological treatises, although his letters certainly contain a great deal of theology, but letters written like other Greco-Roman letters in the first century. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that right now. The extensive use that was made of letters as vehicles of communication during the Greco-Roman period has been demonstrated not only in the many references made to letters and letter writing in contemporary histories of that time, but also more directly through the many letters that have been unearthed in and around the Mediterranean as a result of continuing archaeological research. Beginning in the 19th century and continuing right up to the present day, archaeologists and specialists in epistolary research have been almost continually involved in a process of discovering, restoring, and translating literally thousands of personal and official letters written on papyri and preserved by chance in the remains of official depositories of records, libraries, remains of libraries, dump heaps, domestic ruins, and a variety of other places. These papyrus letters, as one scholar has written, give us a thorough cross-section of ancient Greco-Roman life, including contracts, business arrangements, family affairs, and communications between friends. These letters also allow us the opportunity to determine something of the normal form and style associated with letter writing in the Greco-Roman era surrounding Paul's life and ministry. And it's to an examination of one of those letters that I would like to turn now. So in your course module, you'll find a copy of a letter from a man by the name of Appian, written back to his father and his family. And I want to encourage you to put that letter beside your screen as you listen to what I want to say to you about it. Appian's letter to Epimachus goes like this. Appian, to Epimachus, his father and Lord, many greetings. Before all things, I pray that you are in health and that you are prospering and faring well continually, together with my sister and her daughter and my brother. I thank the Lord Serapis. Serapis, by the way, is the name for an Egyptian god. And Appian obviously is coming from Egypt, and we're going to find out he's been conscripted into the Roman Navy. So he says, I thank the Lord Serapis that when I was in peril in the sea, he saved me immediately. And when I came to Mycenae, which is a place in Italy, I received as viaticum, journey money, from Caesar, 3 pieces of gold. And it's well with me. So I beseech thee, my Lord Father, write unto me a little letter. Firstly, about your health. Secondly, about that of my brother and sister. Thirdly, that I may do obeisance to thy hand. That's a strange phrase, obeisance to thy hand, and we don't use that word obeisance very much, but what it means is that I may pay respect to your hand. One of the really interesting things about letters in the Greco-Roman era is that they are considered documents that, when read aloud, allow a person who wrote them to become personally present to a person who reads them. And so when Appian says that I may do obeisance to thy hand, it means that he wants to listen respectfully to the voice of his father speaking through a letter that he hopes his father will write back to him. And as he listens to his father's voice, he intends to pay as much respect and obedience to the letter as he reads it aloud, as if his father were reading it to him in his own voice. What he wants to hear about from his father is firstly his father's health, and secondly the health of his brother and sister. And then he says, you've taught me everything well, and I hope to advance quickly if the gods will. And then he closes his letter by saying, salute Capito much, evidently one of Appian's friends, and my brother and sister, and Serenilla and my other friends. And then, really interesting, as this letter was rolled up, people who have been involved in the process of writing and transmitting this letter are named. And so Appian says, I'm sending you by Euctemon a little picture of me, And we actually have some of these little pictures that were painted usually on wood or on pieces of pottery. And Appian's obviously proud of his new standing in the Roman Navy, and so he is sending back a picture of him perhaps in his uniform. And then you have, moreover, my name is Antimus Maximus, one of the carriers of the letter probably, and he sends greetings. And then another centurion by the name of Athenonicus sends greetings. And finally, a person by the name of Serenus, the son of Agathenus Daemon, and the son of, and there the writing gets a little difficult to translate in full, because when you roll up a letter and it's preserved in a rolled up form, the outermost part of the letter begins to deteriorate the most quickly. So this is Appian's letter to his father Epimachus, and if you look at it, I think you'll see a couple of things. First of all, I think that you'll see three basic elements to what I would call the superstructure of the letter. And the superstructure of the letter and these three basic elements consist of these three things: an opening, a body, and a closing. Those three elements, however, are probably so basic as to be included in some fashion in virtually all letters, ancient and modern. So we have to try to look a little bit more closely for the specific features that are found in each of the three main parts of this superstructure and explore them a little bit and look for the elements that are included in them. So what I want to do is give you an outline of the formal elements that are customary or usually found in a Greco-Roman letter. In the introduction, first of all, you usually find the name of the person sending the letter. And in this case, it's simply a personal name, Appian. Second thing you find in the opening of a Greco-Roman letter is the name or identification of the person to whom the person to whom the letter is being addressed. In this case, it's Epimachus, Appian's father. The next thing that you find in the introduction of the letter is a greeting. And Appian, first of all, sends this in Greek and says, "Pleista Kyrie," which means many greetings. And the fourth element that you find in the introduction, which really makes a transition between the introduction and the body of the letter, is a prayer, and in this case, a prayer for the good health of Appian's father, Epimachus. And he says, "Before all things, I pray that you're in health and that you're prospering and faring well continually with my sister and her daughter and my brother." After that prayer for his family, you have a prayer of thanksgiving. And that's when he thanks the Lord Serapis. And then you begin to transition into the body itself. And the body itself begins with a narrative of how Appian comes to write this letter. And he describes how he came to Mycenae and how he received journey money from Caesar and says that it's well with him. And then you get into the body of the letter after that transitional section, that narrative section that begins the body and explains the circumstances surrounding the writing of the letter. And this is the place where Appian begins to make a request of his father. And he has three requests, and you can see them in the letter itself, firstly, secondly, and thirdly. And then you have the closing of the letter. And the closing consists of messages for friends or relatives and a final greeting when Appian says, "I therefore hope to advance quickly if the gods will." And that's his final word. Then he sends greetings to people. He tells his father that his name is now a Roman name. And by the way, it's not uncommon for Romans, when they conscript people from other parts of the empire into their army or navy, to give them a Roman name. And that's what's happening. And so the final greeting for Appian is, "Fare thee well, I pray." And those are typical features of a Greco-Roman letter. They're easy to see in Appian's letter to Epimachus. And in the next video, we'll see how they are featured in Paul's letter to Corinth, his first Corinthian letter, canonically speaking.